Welcome back, Kim Ray here with another episode of Redstone Zero to Hero. Today we're going to talk about simple inputs and outputs, so let's get started. Alright, so one of the most simple inputs you have for Redstone is the lever. You put it on a block, you flip it, and you have permanent power. If you flip it to the on position, it will supply power forever until you turn it back off. And it can be placed on the side of blocks, on top of blocks, and on the bottom of blocks. Next we have buttons. There's two different kinds. You've got stone and wooden buttons. Stone buttons can be pressed and will supply power for 10 redstone ticks, which is 1 second. As long as there's no lag, you get 1 second right there. Wooden buttons are slightly different. They do the same thing, but as you can see, they're slightly longer. If I hit those both quickly, the wooden button goes a little bit longer. It's 15 redstone ticks on a wooden button, which is 1.5 seconds. Another benefit of the wooden button is it can be activated with an arrow. I can shoot an arrow into it, and that button will stay pressed so long as the arrow is there. Fired arrows will stay in the game world for 1 minute before despawning. So just shooting a bow and arrow at a wooden button will give you a 1 minute timer on that power. Next, we've got redstone torches. These supply power unless their state is changed by another redstone device. This was covered in the first episode of Redstone Zero to Hero. So if you don't remember that, be sure to go back and take a look at the overview of redstone. The same thing is true with the redstone block. It supplies power as long as it is connected to any other redstone component. The benefit of the redstone block versus the torch is that a redstone block is movable. You can push a redstone block around with a piston. You cannot push a redstone torch with a piston. You push the torch with a piston and the piston will just pop off and break, and you can just pick it back up. So that is the benefit of that. Next, we've got pressure plates. Again, two variations. You've got the stone pressure plate, which is activated by a mob or player standing on top of it, and will supply a full 15 power to any redstone connected to it. Wooden pressure plates, on the other hand, are actually triggered by mobs and players, but also by other entities. So you can drop an item on there and it will be powered for as long as the item sits there. Items in Minecraft will stay in the world for 5 minutes when you drop them, and then they will despawn. So similar to the wooden button, which is a 1 minute timer when firing an arrow into it, you can get a 5-minute timer with a wooden pressure plate by dropping an item. This works for a lot of entities, including fired arrows and all dropped entities. The only thing that doesn't work is throwing a snowball at it. That does not activate the trapdoor. Another thing to keep in mind with pressure plates is they are activated and will stay activated for 5 redstone ticks after you step off of them, or after an item is picked up from the wooden ones. They will stay on for 5 more redstone ticks afterwards. The last input I want to talk about in this video is the tripwire. A tripwire is made by placing a tripwire hook on the side of a block, another tripwire hook on an opposite block, and having at least one string placed in between them creates a tripwire. Keep in mind that a tripwire line has to be at least 1 block of string, all the way up to 40 blocks of string in a straight line can create a tripwire. And this is activated by stepping on it. If you cross the tripwire, you can see it activates. And this is activated by mobs and players. This is activated by entities such as dropping items or firing an arrow. And once again, this is not activated by throwing a snowball. Now keep in mind, with tripwires, breaking a string block along the tripwire will activate the tripwire for 5 ticks. So if I were to break the string, see how it activated it for 5 ticks, or half a second. Now, if I take shears and cut it, it does not trigger the tripwire at all. So you can actually disarm a tripwire with shears. Next, I want to talk about simple outputs. These are things that you can manipulate with redstone. So we'll start with one of the most simple ones, the wooden door. Now, wooden door does exactly what you'd expect it to. You supply power, the door opens. You turn it off, the door closes. Supplying redstone power to a door will change its state. Now, keep in mind, when this door opens in Minecraft, these doors do not move, technically. What happens when you flip the lever is the door facing this way disappears and is replaced with a door facing that way. So you cannot move entities by opening and closing a door. So keep that in mind. When using a door, you cannot use it to move entities. The exact same is true of iron doors. One thing to keep in mind, though, while a wooden door can be manually opened, an iron door cannot. It can only be opened with redstone power. Next, we have trap doors, which, similar to doors and the inputs we talked about, they have two variations. There's the wooden one and the iron one. Similar to the doors, the iron trapdoor cannot be manipulated manually. It can only be manipulated with redstone, whereas the wooden one can be manually manipulated, but can also be manipulated with redstone. Once again, you cannot move an entity, such as a mob, by opening and closing these, because they do not move, they actually just teleport, basically. Now, the various types of wooden fence gate behave the exact same way as the door. You can, like other wooden doors, you can manually open and close them, or open and close them with redstone. Once again, they do not move, they teleport from the closed state to the open state and back, so you cannot move entities with them. Next, we have the dispenser. The dispenser, if you open it, has a 3x3 grid of inventory space that you can fill with items. Now, when it receives a redstone input, if you listen to it, turning it off does nothing, but turning it on makes it click. It's trying to fire an item. A dispenser will eject an item from its inventory every time it receives power. And now, the way it ejects the item is it uses it. It does not drop it, it uses it. So if you put arrows in there, it does not drop the arrows, it uses the arrows. So it fires the arrow out, similar to me shooting my bow. Or if you put snowballs in it, it will shoot the snowballs instead of just dropping them. Now, dispensers using items react in several different ways. Like I said, with arrows, it shoots them. With snowballs, it fires them. With bottles of enchanting, eggs, fire charges, fireworks, splash potions, it will use the item, it will fire it. Bone meal will be used on anything directly in front of the dispenser, such as saplings or grass, flowers, that sort of thing. It will use the bone meal on them, just like a player would. If you put boats in there, it will dispense the boat and actually place the boat. Armor dispensed will be equipped on a player so long as they are directly in front of the dispenser. Buckets will collect water or lava, or if it's a filled bucket of water or lava, it will dispense the water or lava in the block directly in front of the dispenser, leaving an empty bucket in there to collect the liquid again when supplied with power. Flint and steel will ignite the block the dispenser is facing. Minecarts, all of the various kinds, minecart with chest, command block, furnace, hopper, all of those will be placed just exactly the same way that a player would place them. And TNT will be placed in front of the dispenser and ignite it when used. Now keep in mind, if you've got, say, stone and arrows in here. Every time I supply power to this, it will randomly choose an item and dispense the item that it chooses. So I hit that, it fired an arrow. I hit it again, oh, it dropped stone. Fired an arrow, dropped stone. Dropped stone. So it doesn't go every other, it just randomly decides which inventory slot it is going to pull an item from and dispense it. Droppers, on the other hand, do operate slightly differently from the dispenser. A dropper will once again pick an item randomly from its inventory and drop the item, exactly the same way as if you pressed the Q button on your keyboard to drop an item. So with arrows, it will just drop them instead of using them. One thing to consider with dispensers and droppers is they will actually dispense or drop directly into an adjacent inventory. So if I've got a hopper next to the dispenser or another dispenser, it will actually fire directly into the inventory of this dispenser. Next we have pistons. Now a piston, when activated, will extend and will retract when power is removed. A piston will push up to 12 blocks in front of it. If there are 12 blocks in front of it, it will push all 12. If there are 13, it will get power but not move. Now, a normal piston will push the 12 blocks, and then when you retract, it will just retract and it will leave a 1 block air gap in front of it. Whereas a sticky piston will pull the block next to it back, leaving a block, air block, and then the remaining 11 blocks. Not all items pushed by pistons react the same way also. If you push things like flowers or placed torches or things like that, pushing them with a piston will actually break the block and drop it. Other blocks like furnaces, chests, and other tile blocks that have inventories cannot be pushed either. And another block that can't be pushed is obsidian. Next we have the redstone lamp. You supply power to it, it turns on and emits 15 light level to its immediate area. Turn it off, it turns off. Nothing too fancy. Next we have the note block. When you supply power to a note block, it plays the program note. If you right click on the note block, you will change the note. Note blocks have a 2-octave range, and the sounds played are manipulated by the block you place the note block on. Dirt will sound differently from glass, which will sound differently from various other blocks. Keep in mind also that note blocks require a 1-block airspace directly above them in order for the note to be played. The next output I want to talk about is the powered rail. This rail block, when it has power applied to it, it will turn on. Unpowered powered rails will actually act as a brake for minecarts. As a minecart passes over it, it will be rapidly slowed down to the point of stopping. If you supply power to it, it will actually boost the minecart and make it move much, much faster. Now, powered rails next to other powered rails will supply power further down the line, and it will supply power up to 9 connected powered rails. So 1 rail that is connected directly to the power source, plus 8 more connected powered rails. Next we have normal rails. If you have a T-junction like this with a curved rail, applying power to the curved rail section will actually flip it to face the other direction. Every time you turn it on, it will flip to one side. You turn it off, it will return to the other direction. And the last output I'd like to talk about is TNT. If you supply redstone power to TNT, it will ignite the TNT, and after 40 ticks, the prime TNT will explode. as a demonstration, we will place the TNT, turn it on, it will light. After 40 ticks, it explodes. Now, TNT that explodes close to placed TNT will also be ignited, but the prime time on TNT that is ignited by another TNT explosion will only ignite for 10 to 30 ticks. It will choose a number in between that range, so you get much faster explosions at that point. Hopefully you learned a little something about simple inputs and outputs. We didn't get into any of the more advanced crazy stuff like daylight sensors or hoppers and trap chests that require comparators to get full use out of. So hopefully you learned something there, and if you like this video, be sure to leave a like, and if you really like it, make sure to subscribe for more tutorials and other Minecraft videos. And if you've got a friend that could use some redstone help, be sure to send them a link to my series. Maybe they'll learn something. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.